I ultimately made my mother, Sharon, pay a stunning price. I got her arrested, her children taken from her career destroyed, and set her up for an audit from the IRS. And it all started with a single, condescending laugh. My story is long and the backstory is necessary to understand the depths of my actions. My mother, Sharon, was a deeply troubled person. Before I was even born, my older sister was taken away from her after she tried to stab my sister's father while he was holding the infant. She lost custody and he left. Then, I came along. My own dad was an alcoholic who went to jail when I was young, so I rarely saw him. Sharon was a single mother, and she worked hard, but she took all her aggression, from her hatred of my father, from work stress, from her own past of sexual abuse, out on me. The abuse started when I was about 4 or 5 and it didn't stop until I was 17. It was a daily hell. She was impossibly strict and physically imposing. The reasons for the beatings were insane. I'd get beaten because her room was dirty. I'd come home from school to find dishes in the sink that weren't there when I left, and I'd be beaten for it. Walking too loud was a beating. For my 10th birthday, she brought me a cake with peanuts, which she knew I was allergic to, and when I looked at her the wrong way, she broke my nose. She used whatever was at hand, fists, extension cords, chairs, even baseball bats. If she was upset and I was in her way, she wouldn't hesitate to kick me down the stairs. Once, she held a knife to my neck and had to be stopped by her boyfriend at the time. Another year, she burned all the Christmas presents I had received from other people. She tried to compensate with video games and electronics, but it never made a difference. It couldn't undo the damage. I found my own small, petty ways to get back at her. I'd pee in the Lipton iced tea she drank every day. Before serving her dinner, I'd rub her fork and spoon between my butt cheeks. When she was screaming in pain from kidney stones, I just ignored her. By high school, I was resentful, cold, and calculated, and I turned to alcohol. Starting at age 15, she would kick me out for months at a time. She even sent me to another country for a year and tried to keep my passport, but I got back to the U.S. with help from the embassy and my stepfather. I came back with no credits for my junior year, which forced me to get a GED instead of a diploma. Then she made a promise. Sharon made a promise she never intended to keep, completely unaware that breaking this specific vow would be the first domino to fall in the destruction of her own life. She told me if I went to college, I would always have a place to live with her until I finished. I took her at her word. I enrolled in a 2-year college and for my first 2 semesters, I excelled. I maintained a 3.7 GPA. My teachers loved me, and school became my escape. But towards the end of my 2nd semester, during finals week, it all came crashing down. I came home around 10 p.m. one night, and she yanked the door open, screaming about when I was going to move out. I was 19, a full-time student with no savings, and I was slightly drunk. I knew if I said a single word, I would finally explode on her, so I just walked past her toward my room. She followed me, ripped my door open, and continued to yell. I just stared at her, silent. She then walked away and called the police, telling them she was afraid I would murder her and my younger siblings. It was a bizarre accusation, considering she was the one who had nearly killed me multiple times. I packed a duffel bag and left before the police even arrived. I missed all my finals and failed my classes. The next few years were a spiral. I was on and off homeless in a big city with no degree, making terrible choices fueled by bad habits. Eventually, I found a profitable hobby that gave me some meaning, and I clawed my way up. I got an apartment, a full-time job, and started to build a life. I had no contact with Sharon, but my younger sister found me on social media, so I saw that while her life wasn't as bad as mine had been, she was still getting beaten occasionally. Then, out of the blue, my mother emailed me, all smiles, asking how I'd been. I've always been envious of people who have good relationships with their moms, so against my better judgment, I gave her a chance and called her. It started civilly enough, but then she asked what I'd been up to for the last few years. I told her the truth, that I'd been homeless for a while and struggled immensely after what she did to me, but that I had worked my way out of it. She laughed. It was a short, condescending chuckle, but it was enough. I never did a thing to you, so you don't know what abuse is, she said. It's your own damn fault you were homeless. This reveals Sharon's greatest fatal flaw, her absolute inability to see her son as a human being she had wronged. In her mind, she was a perpetual victim, and her cruelty was always justified. That arrogance sealed her fate. I hung up the phone, speechless and fuming. At that moment, the years of pain didn't just turn into anger, they crystallized into a cold, methodical purpose. The boy she had tried to break had instead been forged into the instrument of her undoing. There were a few things Sharon didn't know. 1. Her well-paying job, the one that paid $75,000 a year, was built on a lie. She never got the college degree she claimed on her resume. 2. I still had access to all of her email and cloud storage accounts, since I had set them up for her years ago and she never changed the passwords. And most importantly, she had no idea that from the age of 13 onward, I had meticulously photographed every bruise, every cut, every bloody nose she ever gave me, saving them all to my Google Drive. On top of that, my little sister had been sending me photos of her own bruises. My first move was to compile every single photo and video into one folder. I then contacted Child Protective Services. I told them my siblings were being abused, detailed how I was abused, and explained that I had mountains of digital proof. Because there was a prior police record involving her and my older sister, they acted immediately. A day later, police and CPS workers arrived at her house. By a stroke of fate, they started knocking on the door at the exact moment she was in the process of beating my younger sister. All 3 of my younger siblings were taken in an emergency removal, and Sharon was arrested. I received a play-by-play of the entire event because my mother's best friend's son was secretly relaying all the information to me. I sent all the evidence to CPS, and a serious case was opened against her. The next day, I calmly called her employer, informed them that she had lied about her college degree, and mentioned the recent arrest. It triggered a background check, and days later, she was fired. There went her $75,000 salary and any chance of working in that industry again. For my next act, I spitefully logged into every email and cloud account I ever made for her and permanently deleted them all, making it nearly impossible to manage her bills and contacts. Finally, I anonymously reported her to the IRS for the years of tax fraud she committed by claiming other people's children, providing them with detailed information that only someone who lived with her would know. So now, she has lost her kids and her job. She has no idea how she'll pay her mortgage. And soon, the IRS will be coming for the thousands of dollars she owes. She has a court date in a few months, and she still has no clue that I am the cause of all of this. My own life is far from perfect. I'm psychologically not in a position to take custody of my siblings. I am working on my issues with alcohol and the lingering instability from my past. In fact, due to some recent bad decisions, I lost my apartment and am crashing with friends again. Many people who've heard my story have urged me to seek help. One person commented, "I hope you can see a therapist. It is but you need to take care of yourself." They're right. I know I need to stop drinking and work on myself so I can be a stable presence for my siblings, who are currently housed together and doing well. I plan to keep tabs on her from a distance. When she is old and near the end, then I will finally tell her it was all me. One person who read my story offered a piece of advice I've been thinking about. They said, "Don't tell her it was you. Just tell her she doesn't know what abuse is, and that it is all her own fault." Maybe that's the better way. Let her live with the consequences, never knowing why, only knowing that her own actions brought her to ruin. This story is a chilling reminder that the wounds inflicted by those who are supposed to protect us don't just vanish. Sometimes they fester into a cold, calculated fury that will eventually demand an accounting. Was my revenge a justified act of justice and self-preservation, or did I go too far? Let us know what you think in the comments.